What is going on, E2? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson, today joined by my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. We're here today kicking off our off-season content. It's going to be a long summer. Rangers, unfortunately, didn't make it all the way like we're all hoping they would, but at this point in our lives, I'm kind of used to it. So as hopeful as I could be, I kind of expected that we'd be making this video sooner rather than later. But to kick off our off-season content, we asked you guys, the fans, share any thoughts, comments, concerns that you have with this team heading into the offseason. So we're going to be reacting to a lot of your submissions. We had a lot of comments. Probably won't be able to respond to all of them, especially because a lot of the comments were the same thoughts about Jacob Trouba in particular. But we're going to be going through as much as we can, shouting you guys out on the channel. So before we get into that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, ring that bell so you don't miss notification. Any other thoughts that we didn't get to talk about today, leave them down in the comment section below, and we'll respond to your comments. Lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on Instagram, X, and TikTok. But while I get these comments ready, Anthony, how are you doing today? And I guess, what are your initial thoughts to the Rangers being eliminated in the conference finals?
I'm doing okay. It's been a couple of days for me to recuperate from that loss, and my thoughts on it are negative. I'm not too happy. I feel like this core really let down the fan base and really let down the front office, the coaching staff. I mean, there should have been enough talent to get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and it disappeared. A lot of these players just disappeared. Like, sure, Artemi Panarin sniped that one at the end of the game, but it was too little too late. Let's be real. Like, the game was almost unmanageable at that point. It was just too late in the game for him to finally appear. And listen, a lot of stars just didn't show up. They did not come to play. And now this season, President's Trophy curse continues. At least we won the President's Trophy, I guess, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted to raise the Stanley Cup, and I'm very disappointed. A lot of really poor performances. I've got a lot of resentment and anger built up towards Mika Zibanejad, towards Jacob Trouba. A little, not as bad as Kreider. I mean, can't be too mad at him because he had that hat trick in the other series, but still, he could have done a little bit more in the Eastern Conference Finals. Everybody could have. I got to shout out Alexi Lafreniere for an incredible postseason run. Vincent Trocheck as well was great, phenomenal in many ways. And man, Igor Shesterkin, just the goddamn MVP of this team, the backbone of this team. And I know that's something that's going to get brought up in this discussion is extending Igor, not going to be cheap, but going to be necessary. Have to keep him around. And unfortunately, with this Rangers team, they have a lot of difficult decisions to make in this offseason. So, as you bring up some of these questions, I'm excited to kind of discuss and dive into it. But ultimately, very sad to be doing this episode and discussing the offseason. I was hoping that we'd have about another month of talking about Rangers hockey, but instead we have offseason discussions kicking off now. And of course, our content's going to be good and exciting, so everybody should stick around to that and tune into all of our socials and stay tuned into the podcast. But this isn't the content that I wanted to be making right now, but excited to make it for the viewers anyways.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, I would have loved to see the Rangers play in the Stanley Cup Finals. They would have played the Edmonton Oilers. I think the Rangers easily could have won that series. I think Florida has it in the bag now, and it's going to be a short Stanley Cup Final, in my opinion. But as far as the Rangers go, I think the team that we just saw play last is going to be very different than the team we have entering the season. I think there are some big changes coming this summer, and that's a common theme across a lot of these comments that we're going to be responding to today, which the first one comes from Chris on Twitter. He says, the Rangers need to tweak their defensive core. Lindgren probably won't be back. He wants us to re-sign Schneider and then give Jones a spot. Trouba's contract hurts, but a buyout would cripple for a few years. So already talk about defensive changes. Ryan Lindgren is a free agent as of right now. So we'll see what happens in July as free agency gets closer. Realistically, I would like to re-sign Ryan Lindgren. I know with money, it might pose a challenge, especially with Alexi Lafreniere also due for a long-term extension. Igor Shesterkin becoming a free agent next season as well. Rangers aren't going to have that much money to throw around, so I think we're going to try to re-sign Lindgren, but I don't know if there's any guarantee on it. As far as Zach Jones and Jacob Trouba go, I would love to see Jones in the lineup. I think 100% he should have made an appearance throughout the playoffs, but I know there is one comment about that specifically, so I'll hold my tongue on that one for now. But Jacob Trouba, I'm down to buy him out. I saw the numbers on Instagram earlier today. If the Rangers were to buy out Jacob Trouba this summer, they'd be saving $4 million for the next 2 seasons, and they would only have to pay an extra $2 million for the 2 seasons after that. And, depending on who stays and who goes, $2 million shouldn't be that hard to, work around. So Jacob Trouba played some of the worst hockey I've ever seen in my life throughout the Eastern Conference Finals, pretty much cost us the series there in Game 6. So as far as the captain goes, get him out of here. And if for some reason he's still here, take the C off his chest and give it to Vincent Trocheck. But that's my opinion on the D core. I think we definitely need to solidify that defensive core a little bit more.
Kreider or Trocheck for the captain. I actually really do like that, one of those two guys. Or maybe they go away from having the one captain and go back to the however many alternates they used to have. It's slipping my mind. But yeah, listen, Jacob Trouba, what a disappointment. Like, his struggles and inconsistencies during the regular season not only reappeared during the postseason, they compounded. They got worse. I mean, how many goals in a row was it that the Panthers scored while Trouba was on the ice?
I think it was 7. I think it might have been 7 straight goals.
The guy was he was a goal machine, but not for us, for the other team. I mean, the defense just played worse with Jacob Trouba on the ice. Count that in with the terrible penalties he commits, just the lack of energy that the team had during that final stretch in the postseason. You got to point towards the captain for some of that. I know he doesn't decide what the energy of the team is, but as the captain, you play a role in that. And this team's energy was lacking. This team looked dull, and the defensive core it wasn't good. It was very, very rough and difficult to see this team kind of collapse from the defense outward and inward into the offense. And again, I think Trouba's poor positioning on a lot of defensive moments, his dumb penalties, just everything. Like, the guy just played really bad hockey throughout the postseason. I mean, sure, he had the one shorty. Outside of that, I can't think of many Jacob Trouba highlights other than him turning into a meme for spearing his head against the boards. That's pretty much it. The 2 highlights of the postseason for Trouba: shorty, sick, spearing himself against the boards. That's about it. I can't say I'm impressed with anything he did throughout the postseason, and I can say that after a couple seasons now of him being a hot topic of whether or not the Rangers should continue to make him the forefront of their defensive core for years to come, I think we got our answer this season. It's done. It's over with. The Trouba experience is not a fun one. I'm over this experiment. Put a nail in it. Cough it under the dirt. Goodbye to Jacob Trouba.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The only other highlight I can think is another negative one in Game 6, that opening goal that Florida scored. Jacob Trouba had every opportunity in the world to make a defensive play against the guy with the puck, but instead he just went to go hit someone and he missed. Thank God he missed the hit, because it would have been an interference call because the guy didn't have the puck. But Trouba just had a really poor decision making right there. But Gabe over on Instagram, he asked a similar question: how long until Jacob Trouba is out of New York? Like we said, hoping soon. But we talked about a potential buyout. Gabe does pose the idea: where does he go if he's traded after his no move clause could become a 15 partial on July 1st? So he does have a no trade clause, but there is the chance that on July 1st that could be modified to give the Rangers a list of half the league that he would be okay with being traded to. I whether it's a trade, buyout, whatever, I might be biased, but I really just don't think he's going to be coming back next season. And if he is around, take away his captaincy and give it to someone who knows how to play hockey and doesn't attempt murder on the ice. Vincent Trocheck. I would say, I know you mentioned Kreider, but I know originally they did offer the captaincy to Kreider, and then he declined it for some reason. And maybe he changes his mind and he'll take it. But I think Vincent Trocheck is the right answer.
And I think it's a good answer, but I'm hoping that Kreider changes his mind. Like, that's what I'm ultimately hoping for. He should have been the captain, in my opinion. And I know we've had viewers in our comment section mention that, like, Kreider should not have passed on it. He should be the captain. And I mean, listen, that's the guy at the end all be all of this Rangers team and this core. His jersey is in the rafters. I don't care what happens. He's going into the rafters. Can you say that about everybody else on this team? Who else on this team can you 100% confidently say is going into the rafters outside of Chris Kreider? Plus, Chris Kreider is still playing at a world-class level. Plus, he's been a star for a long time for this Rangers team and is an excellent leader. He makes the most sense. I'm hoping that he accepts the captaincy, but if not, I'm with you. Give it to Vinny Trocheck. He really embodies what it means to be a New York hockey player in my mind, and I think that he's also a great leader, brings so much energy to the ice, and yeah, so I think those are the two best options there. But bada bing, bada boom, get Jacob Trouba out of here.
Hey, the other alternative is just take it away from Trouba, go a couple seasons without a captain, and then when he's like fully developed, Alexi Lafreniere might be able to have it.
I knew that's where you were going with that. I love it.
Because he's going to get a fat contract this summer, like 7 or 8 years. Like I hope so at least. Hopefully we can afford it. But let's move on. The other comment we got on the Fireside Rangers Instagram comes from Cindy Luhu 71. As a good Dr. Seuss reference. Igor, you're still the best goalie in the NHL, and despite the loss, you were still the best goalie in that series. The team let you down, and that was unacceptable. Crying emoji. It's not really a question, but I got to shout out Igor. He's the only reason the Rangers made it as far as they did. The Rangers had no right taking that conference finals to 6 games. We should have been swept. There was not a single moment in that entire series where the Rangers looked like the better team, where they still won 2 games because Igor Shesterkin carried them on his back. So that's my Igor shout out for the day. I don't know if you want to add anything, Tony, while I get to the next comment, you can.
You're right. I mean, this Rangers team very well could have been shut out or swept, in this series. And listen, there were many times where we got those unlikely goal scorers to save us from the dying embers. The Gaudreau goal would have been remembered in history for a long time had this Rangers team went on to win the Cup. Same for the Wenberg goal. Didn't happen, but the only reason that we had those opportunities for a Gaudreau game winner, for a Wenberg game winner, it's because Igor Shesterkin kept this team in every game. I mean, seeing him being held by Vincent Trocheck, captain candidate, seeing him be held by him after Game 6, letting it all out and the emotions pour out, crying, that was heartbreaking to see. Shesterkin deserved so much better from this team. It's not fair that this season went the way that it did. Igor played at a world-class level. He played at a Stanley Cup Finals level. The rest of the team didn't match that energy or quality. It's painful. It sucks. But all credit in the world to Igor Shesterkin, and the Rangers have to do everything they can to make him a happy man this offseason and give him the extension that he absolutely deserves.
Yeah, whatever the price may be. I saw Molly Walker reported Igor's agent reportedly aiming for like $12 million average annual value, which is a lot of money. I think that would make him the highest paid goaltender ever, but he's earned it. He deserves it. And I'd be more than happy to write that check myself if I had the money. But moving on with the comments, we're going to quick pivot back to the defense because I found the Zach Jones comment from Dumpy Bear 8664 on YouTube. Question: we decided to play guys that had long-term injuries, but would not let Jones play a single second over any of our underperforming defensemen. Why? That's a great question. And I love Peter Laviolette. I'll never hate on him, but it is one of the more questionable things I saw him do this season. You had Adam Fox playing on a broken leg, basically. Jacob Trouba played horribly. Whoever Trouba was with also played horribly, whether it be Miller, Gustafsson, anyone. So I understand you're not going to take Adam Fox out. He's your star defenseman, even if he is injured. If he can still play, if he can walk, he can skate, he's going to play. But as far as the other defensemen go, there's no reason why Zach Jones shouldn't have been put in, not only just because he's healthier and better. His skill set was better fit against the Panthers. He's a quick puck-moving defenseman, knows how to break it out. And honestly, breakouts and setting up in the offensive zone was one of the major things that the Rangers struggled on in this series. So it seemed like he would have been a perfect fit. I don't know why he didn't get the opportunity to play. Like we talked about earlier in today's episode, I'm sure that heading into next season, when the defensive core does look a little bit different than it does now, I'm sure that Zach Jones will be given a full-time look as an NHL regular, but we'll have to wait and see on what Laviolette wants to do with him over the summer.
Yeah, and I'm a big Peter Laviolette fan and apologist and defender and praiser. All those adjectives still true, but on me, I during this final postseason series, Eric, a couple times on this channel and definitely through text to you during the games, I was criticizing Peter Laviolette. I wasn't crazy about a lot of the decisions that he made in this Eastern Conference Finals. I think he tried his best. I think this team kind of just ran out of gas, and but there were definitely opportunities for Laviolette to right the ship, and he didn't exactly do that. And I think one of the things, as you mentioned, everybody could see the struggles that this defensive core was having. And I feel like a lot of the adjustments that Laviolette made were to the offensive lines, moving Kakko here, Hedl managing. The Hedl management decision is the one that I think is going to haunt this team forever, having Blake Wheeler in at the end of game 4. But I think that's the one that really sunk this team. Hedl should have been playing in that game. I think that honestly saves the series if he is. I think the whole lineup looks completely different and plays completely different with Hedl in game 4. But I'll digress from that one and just say the struggles with the defensive core, he didn't do a whole lot to kind of mitigate that. He didn't really make adjustments. And I think you're right. Zach Jones probably should have been called up. We should have seen him at some point in this series. And we didn't. And ultimately, Rangers are going back to New York, New Jersey, or wherever else. And unfortunately, I think that's the one misstep that Laviolette really made was not making any adjustments to the defensive core during the postseason run.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of Laviolette, Eric Dane over here on YouTube, he has a nice comment about how they have a lot to build on going into next season. Igor still elite. Trocheck and Lafreniere really stepped up. But at the end, he does say, and Laviolette is the right coach for this team. So I'm curious to know how much faith do we still have in Laviolette? Because we know he did make a couple of season-ending errors by not playing certain players, not changing up enough. Now, obviously, I still love Laviolette. I think he's a great coach. It's also important to note that Chris Knobloch, the other front runner we had last summer looking for a new coach, he got hired by the Oilers. He's in the Stanley Cup Finals. Did the Rangers make a mistake by not staying in the system? I don't know. Like, I'm not going to take one season and be like, Laviolette was a mistake. He won us a President's Trophy. I still have faith, but it is important to note that he wasn't perfect. Neither was anyone on the Rangers, though. But how do you feel? What's your confidence level at?
It is kind of funny that we were so high on Knobloch. I know last year we were getting roasted for saying his name wrong, so forgive me if I'm saying it wrong again. But I know we got roasted a lot for wanting Knobloch as the head coach of this team. Like, that was our personal pick, if I remember correctly. Once the hiring of Laviolette happened, we were initially underwhelmed and then kind of bought into it and said this. The more we thought about it, the more we realized it was the right hiring, and we do agree with the decision still, and we do still love Peter Laviolette and have utmost confidence in him. But it is interesting that, we were right about Knobloch being a good coaching candidate. Now he's coaching in the Stanley Cup Finals. Good for him. I'm excited for that, and I think that if you want to find a team to root for, and that's the one. Obviously not rooting for the Panthers in this one. That's a little bit too painful for Rangers fans. So, rooting for Knobloch and a guy who came up through our system as a coach is pretty cool. But my confidence level is still high in Peter Laviolette to really fully answer your main question there. Is it shaken a little bit? Sure. And I'll explain why. I'm wondering if Laviolette's one of those coaches. I'm going to make an analogy to football here, Eric. If he's one of those coaches like a Mike McCarthy, Green Bay Packers, now Dallas Cowboys, always dominating the regular season, top team in the league year in, year out, round 2 of the playoffs, you're done. That's pretty much how it's always been for Mike McCarthy. That's why Aaron Rodgers only has 1 ring. That's why the Dallas Cowboys continue to be a joke whenever the postseason rolls around. I fear that Laviolette, if he has another season like the one we just had, where great regular season, runs out of gas in the postseason, all done, I would fear that he could be a McCarthy, and that's where you would wish that you went with a Knobloch who, sure, isn't guaranteed to give you that regular season success when you initially hire him, but has that ceiling where if things go right, boom, you're in the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's what happened with Knobloch. Maybe next year they missed the postseason, like one of those kind of coaches where there's more variance. We know the consistency is going to be there with Laviolette. This is going to be a good regular season team. They'll make the playoffs probably every year with Laviolette. Will they win a finals is the question mark that I'm going to have here with Peter Laviolette. So still very confident in him. My confidence isn't that shaken. I still believe he could be Stanley Cup winning head coach for the New York Rangers. But I do have a little bit of fear in my mind that maybe he's a regular season coach, and we'll see, because this team in the postseason was not what it was in the regular season. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one comment that has haunted me for the last couple months, I've mentioned it a few times. I don't remember who said it, but earlier at the beginning of the season when the Rangers were on an absolute heater, just beating everyone, someone said, "You are now experiencing what is called first year Peter Laviolette,"
Yes.
which because I guess whenever he plays with the team, he has like a really good first season, then it all goes downhill from there. But I don't know. The Rangers are different. Hopefully, whatever. I don't know. I haven't like followed Laviolette's like past teams or anything, so I don't know how accurate that statement is. But it's something I think about quite often. I'm like, are the Rangers going to come out and just suck next year? But I don't know. We'll see what happens moving forward. But moving on, we've got a comment here from Edwin Rivera. And he says, this is still a very good team. Adversity in the playoffs helps build the team. I suppose we'll see some roster changes. The defense lacks focus at time, and more grit is needed. Thanks, Fireside, for making the season more fun. Well, you're welcome. We had a lot of fun doing it, entertaining all of you guys. But the biggest thing that I'm taking away there is that more grit is needed. We know who the grittiest player in the entire NHL is. It's Matthew Rempe. I'm interested to see how the rest of his career is going to develop. I would have to assume that Peter Laviolette is going to keep him in the lineup, make him an NHL regular throughout the rest of the season or throughout next season. But at the end of the day, he wasn't really utilized that much in the playoffs. So I don't really know how Laviolette's feeling about him. You can tell that he likes him because he keeps putting him in the lineup, but he doesn't play him that often. That might have only just been a thing for the playoffs, and maybe we'll see more of Rempe moving forward next season. But I definitely agree. Rangers need to be a lot more physical. A lot of our stars got kind of soft. Zibanejad cost us an overtime goal just because he didn't want to get hit. Now, I would like to see some players, including Matt Rempe, be more physical, take the big hits to make a play. And I think that's a big thing that we were seriously missing throughout these playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would have liked to see more Matt Rempe. I mean, we were calling for him in that Game 4 when we were at the Florida Panthers Stadium. We were saying, where's Rempe? Give us more Rempe. Rempe played a really good game in that one, and then he didn't play a whole lot for the rest of the series. And his inconsistent minutes and Laviolette's Laviolette's kind of lack of a desire to see Rempe on the ice, I think was questionable because he was a spark plug. He's not the best skater, and he never will be. He's a 6'9" mammoth who's just kind of like flying around on the ice, hitting people. It's kind of necessary. This Rangers team really needed that. And I'll even say, not only was the team better sometimes with Rempe on the ice, but as soon as Rempe would come off the ice, I always felt like that next shift benefited from the team being a little bit skittish because Rempe was flying around killing people. And so the next shift, the players would come out there, and I think they would face easier opponents who were a little bit off guard and play better. So I think that Rempe does provide valuable minutes. The grit that he provides, the passion, the spark, the physicality, all of that, I think it was needed in a higher dosage against the physical Florida Panthers team. And I think that going forward, you can bank on more Rempe, man. I think we need more Rempe, man. I like the way that he plays, and I like the fear that he instills into the opponents. So, yeah, happy with Rempe. Really great rookie season for him. A lot of highs and lows, but, the highs were really high, and he was just a very easy player to root for.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see a lot more of him, but I know we got to start to wrap it up soon. And I will say the rest of the comments on the YouTube, they kind of all share the same sentiments. Like MJ is the GOAT, 2345 is talking about trading Kakko in a first for certain players. Johnny Reno is talking about stop giving players huge contracts and just getting new players to sign the team. Sam says, if we want a different outcome, what changes are going to be made offensively? It's all about big changes coming. So if I didn't read your name, I'm sorry, but you guys all kind of feel the same way like we do. As far as a big change goes, I don't see Kakko coming back. He's a free agent this season, and I've been a big Kakko defender on this channel. I'm ready to he can go. He can sign somewhere else. Mika Zibanejad would be another major change. I kind of want to trade him. I don't think he's built to be a playoff performer. He's kind of disappointed every season in the playoffs, but at the end of the day, he has a no trade clause. So unless he waives that, he's sticking around. I think the biggest change we're going to see throughout this summer is going to be Kakko leaving and Jacob Trouba either being bought out or traded. And then hopefully with the money that the Rangers have saved from not bringing back those players, we can sign a real first-line right winger. So then Kreider and Zibanejad aren't going to have to play with Alex Wenberg in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Which, by the way, Roslovic and Wenberg, thank you for your time. You can go. Bye. So yeah, I think that's gonna be the biggest change I think is happening. No more Kakko, no more Trouba. Bye. But what do you think? If you're thinking the biggest change the Rangers are going to make, what do you think it's going to be?
I think Trouba's gone. I think that goes without saying. It's like the biggest thing that we can almost bank on happening. And I don't know, man. I'm not gonna place any bets on it. I'm not gonna say it's definitely happening, but I do think we have to keep our eyes peeled for a potential Mika Zibanejad trade. And I know that the no move clause is in there, but who knows if maybe he's also unhappy with the way he played and wants to change of scenery. I think that it's something that you can keep in the back of your mind as a potential thing that happens. Not saying it's likely, but if a huge thing is going to happen to the Rangers that shocks us all, I think Zibanejad wanting a change of scenery would be that thing. But more realistically, like you said, Kakko, he hasn't lived up to the hype, and we're seeing the hype starting to be realized with Lafreniere, and I think that's just making it even worse for Kakko.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I like Kakko, but we gave him a 2-year bridge deal to prove himself. He didn't. He had 1 goal in 16 playoff games that the Rangers played in. It's at some point I've run out of excuses for him. So I think he's gone. We talked about Lindgren earlier. I'm hoping we can re-sign Lindgren, but don't be shocked if he's not a Ranger next season. I can see him signing elsewhere too if we don't have the cap for it, especially after extending Lafreniere for such a lengthy extension that I'm assuming he's going to get. But I don't know. We talked about a lot today and in brief increments. I'm sure Kakko leaving, a Trouba trade, who can be the new first-line right winger. I'm sure we'll make individual episodes dedicated to all those topics, or we can dive deeper into each of them throughout the course of the summer, which it's going to be a long one. So anything else you guys want us to talk about, drop some recommendations down in the comment section below. We've had a lot of really good videos inspired by you guys, the fans, just like this one, talking about what you have to say. So to everyone who submitted their comments, thank you for taking the time to do so. I'm sorry we didn't have enough time to get through every single one of them, but I promise you I read them all and appreciate all the support. As far as this video goes, if you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell to miss notification. Like I just said, blow up that comment section with any ideas or anything else you want us to talk about in upcoming videos throughout the offseason. Lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Have a good one. See you next time, and let's go Rangers.